Ethan Clarke lived a quiet life. He worked at a deep space relay station orbiting Saturn. His job was simple, at least he thought it was. He maintained a special device that connected human space with many alien networks. It was a complex system, but Ethan enjoyed it. He liked order, small routines, and his peaceful apartment. He often talked to his younger sister Lily through video calls. She always made him smile. One night, Ethan was alone on the station. The hum of machines was steady and comforting. Suddenly, a high-priority signal flashed on his screen. It was not from humans. It came from a distant alien empire called the Jurian Concord. The signal was bright and strange, full of symbols and holograms. A real-time ritual interface appeared. Ethan's translator misread it as a treaty confirmation form. He studied the instructions. They seemed simple. He had to confirm peace terms, speak a short phrase, and touch a spinning light ring. Ethan did not know the true meaning. The translator showed words like agreement, union, and binding contract. It hid the deeper cultural meaning. In Jurian law, the ritual was for royal marriage pacts. Ethan thought it was a normal diplomatic task. He spoke the phrase and placed his hand on the ring. Far across the stars, Queen Irelia of the Jurian Concord stood in her throne room. Crystal walls shone around her. Her advisors and warriors waited silently. She believed she was performing an ancient ritual to bind her people to a mighty champion of the Deathworlders. These were humans known for surviving impossible dangers. When Ethan's image appeared, she gasped. He looked small, tired, and very ordinary. The words they spoke overlapped through the translator. Neither fully understood. Energy flared, symbols glowed, and a bright seal appeared above both of them in holographic form. In Jurian law, this meant they were life-bound partners. In human records, it only showed treaty confirmed. Ethan's station received urgent messages from Earth Command. They asked why he accepted an unknown high-binding agreement. Ethan was confused. At the same time, Queen Irelia's empire began ceremonial preparations. A royal escort ship was sent toward human territory to bring their new royal consort. Ethan went to sleep thinking it was a normal glitch. He had no idea he had just married an alien queen. The next morning, human diplomats called Ethan to a secure link. They showed him alien legal records. His name was listed as Royal Consort Ethan of the Deathworlders. Ethan thought it was a joke. Then he saw images of Queen Irelia and her massive royal flagship moving toward them. Panic started to rise in his chest. Human leaders had different reactions. Some were nervous, some were curious. Marrying into a major alien empire could be an advantage. Military officers feared losing human sovereignty. Olivia Turner, a diplomat, told them to protect Ethan and not use him as a tool. The Jurian flagship appeared in human space near Saturn. It was enormous. Thousands of alien warriors and nobles were on board. Queen Irelia was ready to meet her human partner. She expected a great warrior. Instead, she saw Ethan in a plain uniform, looking nervous. Their first meeting was strange. The translator struggled. Irelia called him soft-formed but statistically dangerous. Ethan heard it as weak but strangely threatening. He joked that he was just a technician, not a warrior. The aliens thought he was being humble, which in their culture meant he was extremely powerful. Cultural misunderstandings continued. The Jurians wanted Ethan to show strength. He tried to lift heavy crystal weapons but failed. Humans hosted a joint feast. Alien food smelled like burning metal. Human food smelled raw and wild to the aliens. Despite the awkwardness, Ethan noticed Irelia carried the weight of her people. She noticed Ethan's honesty, even when it made him look weak. Some Jurian generals whispered that a human consort was a mistake. The Vornar hegemony, a rival alliance, watched carefully. They saw a chance to attack both the Jurians and humans. Ethan overheard part of a conversation and realized this wedding could drag Earth into a war. Human leadership offered Ethan a way out. He could claim a translation error and leave. He looked at images of Zurian civilians celebrating the Union. They had hope in him. Ethan decided to stay. He would be himself and learn to stand beside the Queen. On board the royal flagship, Ethan walked through bright corridors filled with unfamiliar shapes and lights. Aliens of different colors and sizes stared. He felt out of place. Queen Irela watched him quietly. He felt her gaze, strong and commanding. She was not afraid, but she expected him to be strong. Ethan swallowed and reminded himself he was a human. Humans survived harsh worlds by using brains, not muscle. He met Derek, the Queen's guard captain. Derek was tall, with muscles that seemed carved from stone. He was supposed to train Ethan in combat and etiquette. Ethan tried to lift a training staff. It slipped from his hands. Derek did not smile, but he did not laugh either. Ethan felt small, but he kept trying. Irela watched with quiet interest. She was learning about this strange, clumsy human. Ethan explored the ship slowly. Alien technology amazed him. Machines floated in the air, humming softly. Lights changed colors with moods. He realized he had to learn fast, or he would be a burden. He started asking questions about the ship's systems, the guards, and the daily routines. The crew looked surprised. Humans rarely asked so many detailed questions. His curiosity impressed them. At night, Ethan sat alone in his cabin. He spoke to Lily on a video call. She laughed when he told her about the floating guards and the glowing walls. He admitted he was scared. She reminded him humans were clever and adaptable. He smiled. He had survived storms, harsh winters, and accidents on Earth. He could survive this. Ethan learned about Zurian culture slowly. Eating was strange. Sleep cycles were longer. Conversations were formal and precise. Every gesture had meaning. He made mistakes but apologized. Irela noticed. She appreciated honesty. She had advisors who lied, flattered, or manipulated. Ethan was simple and truthful. It was refreshing. One day, Ethan found a hidden room full of maps and star charts. He studied them quietly. The Zurians had colonies on many planets. Their empire was vast but fragile. Some regions were under threat from the Vornar hegemony. Ethan realized this accidental wedding might carry real responsibilities, not just ceremonial but practical. His choices could affect many lives. Ethan practiced human skills. He repaired broken devices, adjusted navigation tools, and made small improvements. Zurian engineers watched. They were amazed at human improvisation. Machines that were considered ancient or fragile by their standards worked perfectly after Ethan touched them. He felt pride. He was not a warrior, but he had other strengths. Queen Irela watched quietly from her throne. She had expected a strong warrior, a champion. She found a different strength in Ethan. He was patient, clever, and brave in small ways. She started respecting him. She also noticed his empathy. He cared for the crew, for the aliens he barely understood. She did not expect that. The first part of Ethan's journey was over, but the adventure was only beginning. He had married an alien queen by accident. He had faced strange rituals, massive ships, and unfamiliar people. He had chosen to stay, despite fear and uncertainty. And for the first time in his life, Ethan felt that his quiet, simple life would never be the same again. The morning after the wedding ritual, Ethan awoke to a new reality. The message from Earth still echoed in his mind. He was now officially the royal consort of Queen Irela, even though he had done nothing to deserve it. His small cabin felt heavier with responsibility than the walls that surrounded it. He joined the Queen in the grand observation hall of the flagship. Light from the distant stars shone through the crystal windows. Irela stood tall and calm, her hands folded. Ethan noticed the way she carried herself, a combination of pride and worry. She had a kingdom, people who depended on her, and now a human who was supposed to share that burden. The first human diplomats arrived shortly after. Olivia Turner led them. She was serious, smart, and careful. She explained to Ethan that the Council on Earth had debated whether he should stay or be removed. They had seen the Xurian legal records. They warned him that if he left, it could offend the Xurians and make peace fragile. If he stayed, it could pull humans into problems they did not expect. Ethan listened quietly. He felt the weight of choice. Then he saw the Queen approach. Irela spoke softly through the translator. "You did not know what you agreed to," she said. "But you are here. That matters." Ethan nodded. Words failed him. He realized he had to try, even if he was unprepared. The Xurian flagship was enormous. Ethan walked through corridors filled with glowing machines and silent guards. Every step reminded him that he was far from Earth. Each alien he passed looked at him with curiosity, suspicion, or respect. He tried to smile. Some smiled back cautiously. Others studied him like a puzzle. Training began the next day. Captain Derek, the Queen's most trusted guard, led Ethan to the training chambers. The walls shimmered with energy fields, and weapons hovered in midair. Derek was serious. "You must learn," he said. "A consort must survive. Not fight wars, but survive everything." Ethan tried to lift a weapon. It slipped from his hands. Derek's face did not change. Ethan felt embarrassed, but kept trying. As days passed, Ethan learned more than he expected. He learned the routines of the ship, the basics of alien etiquette, and small survival tactics. Irela watched quietly. She noticed how he did not give up. He failed often, but he stood again. She began to respect his persistence. In a way, he reminded her of her people, stubborn, clever, and alive. One evening, Ethan found a quiet room filled with holographic star maps. He traced the lines of trade routes and outposts. The Xurian concord was vast but vulnerable. He realized that his accidental marriage could pull humans into situations they were not ready for. He thought about Earth and its people. He felt a responsibility he never wanted but could not ignore. The Queen invited him to join her at a formal dinner. Ethan observed her carefully. She sat with confidence, yet her eyes betrayed concern. She asked him simple questions about Earth. He told her about oceans, mountains, and deserts. He explained that humans survive not because they are strong, but because they are clever and adaptable. Irela listened, intrigued. Over the next few days, Ethan met many aliens. Some were polite, some cautious, and a few openly skeptical. He listened and learned. He repaired small machines, organized simple tasks, and shared human ideas. The aliens began to notice that this small human was different. He did not command armies or intimidate. He solved problems in ways they did not expect. At night, he spoke to Lily through video calls. She laughed when he described floating machines and glowing corridors. She reminded him that humans had always faced impossible challenges and survived. Ethan smiled. Her words gave him strength. Meanwhile, tension grew outside the flagship. Reports came of raids on border colonies. Evidence suggested that the Vornar hegemony might be behind the attacks. The Xurians feared a larger war. Humans were worried about being dragged into a conflict. Ethan realized the wedding might have larger consequences than he imagined. The Queen's advisors whispered that a human consort could be a mistake. Ethan overheard fragments of conversation. Some believed he was a weak link. Others suggested he could be used as a political tool. He felt a mixture of fear and determination. He would not be used. He would act with honesty and courage. Ethan began to combine human skills with Xurian technology. He suggested repairs, reorganized systems, and improved communication networks. Alien engineers watched in surprise. Ethan's improvisation solved problems quickly. Irela noticed this. She began to trust him, seeing a new kind of strength beyond muscles and weapons. One day, while exploring the communication logs, Ethan discovered a hidden message. It was coded, buried deep within the ritual data. It warned of a traitor near the Queen. It said enemies had watched the wedding and now knew the weaknesses of the relay. Ethan's heart raced. He took the message to Irela. She read it carefully, then looked at him with a mixture of surprise and relief. Ethan had seen what others ignored. The two spent long hours discussing strategy. Irela explained the pressures of ruling an empire. Ethan spoke about human ingenuity and survival. They learned from each other. Irela realized that strength came in many forms. Ethan realized that courage was more than fighting. It was understanding, acting, and protecting others. Despite misunderstandings and cultural gaps, a bond formed. Irela appreciated Ethan's honesty and calm under pressure. Ethan respected her wisdom and care for her people. They began to see each other not as a human and an alien queen, but as partners facing the same challenges. Ethan continued his training. He learned how to handle basic weaponry, understand protocols, and read alien body language. He made mistakes, but each time he learned. Irela observed quietly. She did not need him to be perfect. She needed him to try. And he did. As weeks passed, Ethan's influence spread. Crew members began to respect his ideas and approach. His human perspective helped solve problems the Xurians could not. Simple acts, like repairing a machine or calming frightened young aliens, showed his value. Irela noticed the change. She began to trust that humans could contribute more than expected. One night, Ethan and Irela walked through a garden dome filled with alien plants. Light reflected softly from crystal walls. They spoke quietly, sharing stories of home worlds, fears, and hopes. Ethan realized the Queen was not just a ruler. She was someone who cared deeply about her people. Irela realized Ethan's strength was not in fighting, but in standing firm and helping others. The days passed, each bringing lessons, challenges, and small victories. Ethan had entered a strange new world by accident. He had married an alien queen without knowing it, but he was learning. He was becoming a consort, not because he wanted glory, but because he chose to stand and face the unknown. By the end of the part, Ethan understood one thing clearly. His life had changed forever. He was no longer just a technician in a quiet orbit station. He was a bridge between two species. He had responsibilities, challenges, and allies. And although fear remained, he had chosen to stay, learn, and act. Ethan Clarke, the ordinary human, was beginning to realize that extraordinary times lay ahead. Ethan woke early, as usual. The quiet hum of the flagship surrounded him. Today, he knew, would be another day of learning and adaptation. Being a royal consort was not simple, and he was beginning to feel the weight of it more clearly. The ship's corridors felt less strange now, but each corner reminded him of how far he had traveled from Earth. Captain Derek was waiting in the training chamber. The room had changed since Ethan's first visits. New holographic targets hovered in the air, and alien weapons floated gently, waiting to be used. Derek did not smile. Today, you will learn to defend yourself and understand the strength of your mind as well as your body, he said. Ethan tried again with the weapons. He struggled but remembered his lessons in persistence. He recalled how humans survived harsh deserts and icy mountains with creativity. He tried small movements, focusing on timing rather than power. Slowly, he began to move with some confidence. Derek's expression remained neutral, but Ethan felt a flicker of approval. After training, Ethan joined Queen Irela in the observation hall. She stood by the large windows, gazing at distant stars. The translator made her words clear. "You are learning quickly," she said. "I see that humans can be clever in ways we never expect." Ethan felt a small sense of pride. It was the first time she had acknowledged his efforts personally. He began to study the Jirian systems more deeply. He learned the communication networks, repair routines, and starship logistics. Each new skill made him more useful to the crew. Engineers watched with interest as Ethan combined human improvisation with Jirian technology. Simple repairs and adjustments worked better than expected. He found joy in helping others solve problems. Ethan also observed how the Queen managed her people. Irela did not command with fear. She listened, she weighed options, and she acted decisively. Ethan began to understand leadership on a deeper level. On Earth, leaders often acted by fear or influence. Here, Irela's methods relied on trust and respect. He admired her strength and clarity. The daily routines on the flagship were strange but fascinating. Ethan ate food that was unfamiliar, sometimes bitter or metallic to his taste. He adapted, finding flavors he liked. He attended briefings with the Queen and her advisors, learning about border colonies, trade routes, and political tensions. Each session revealed more about the Empire and the challenges it faced. One day, while exploring a storage section, Ethan found a small library of human cultural materials brought by a previous diplomat. He spent hours watching old human films and reading about Earth history. He realized that despite differences, humans and Jirians shared a desire to survive and protect their people. He began to see his role not as a mistake, but as a bridge. As he learned, Ethan also discovered small ways to help the crew emotionally. He comforted a young Jirian engineer who feared making a mistake. He shared stories about humans overcoming failures and setbacks. These acts were small, but they began to change how the crew viewed him. He was not just a human in a strange place. He was someone who could help and inspire. Queen Irela noticed these changes. She started attending the small gatherings Ethan organized, pretending it was for research but truly curious. They talked about leadership, duty, and responsibility. Irela shared the pressure of ruling an empire. Ethan shared human ideas about problem-solving and resilience. Slowly, they began to trust one another. However, tension outside the flagship grew. Border colonies were under attack. Reports suggested the Vornar hegemony might be responsible. Humans worried about being dragged into war. Jirians feared for their empire's stability. Ethan realized the marriage he thought was a private accident could have serious consequences for many people. Some Jirian nobles openly doubted Ethan. They whispered that a human consort could be dangerous. Others argued he might be a useful tool. Ethan listened quietly, feeling a mix of fear and resolve. He decided to act not as a pawn, but as a partner. He would show his value through action and thought. Ethan's technical skills became more important. He suggested improvements in ship systems and communication protocols. He organized repairs and adjusted devices with precision. Engineers who were skeptical began to watch and learn. His human perspective solved problems the Jirians could not see. Irela noticed these solutions. She began to trust him more, seeing a different kind of strength. One afternoon, Ethan discovered a hidden code in the relay logs from the wedding ceremony. It was a warning about a possible traitor close to the Queen. Enemies had watched the ritual and now knew weaknesses in the relay systems. Ethan brought this to Irela. She read the messages carefully. She realized his discovery could prevent disaster. Ethan had become more than a consort. He was a protector. Together, they developed plans to secure the ship and the Empire. Ethan explained human strategies for problem-solving under pressure. Irela explained Jirian procedures and tactics. They began to combine their knowledge, learning from each other. Ethan realized that courage was not only in fighting, but in thinking, helping, and standing firm. Ethan continued training with Derek, not just in combat, but in tactics and observation. He learned to anticipate danger, use the environment, and work with alien systems. Though he was still not a warrior in the traditional sense, his skills improved. Irela observed quietly. She appreciated his persistence, patience, and intelligence. Daily life on the flagship included social interactions with the crew. Ethan learned to communicate in ways that respected Zurian culture while maintaining his human nature. He discovered humor, empathy, and shared experiences could build trust. Crew members began seeking his advice and listening to his ideas. His influence grew slowly but steadily. At night, Ethan often spoke with Lily on video calls. She encouraged him to keep learning and to remain true to himself. She reminded him that humans were known for surviving against odds. Ethan reflected on her words. He realized that his mistakes were opportunities, his failures lessons, and his persistence a strength. He was becoming the kind of human who could truly stand beside the Queen. One quiet evening, Ethan and Irela walked through a small garden dome filled with alien plants. Soft light reflected from crystal walls. They shared stories of their home worlds, fears, and hopes. Ethan began to understand Irela not just as a queen, but as a person. Irela began to see Ethan not just as a human, but as a partner who cared deeply about her people. Small victories continued. Ethan's repairs and innovations kept the ship running efficiently. Crew morale improved due to his kindness and practical skills. The Queen's trust in him deepened. They began making decisions together, discussing strategies, and considering the well-being of all aboard. Their partnership was no longer accidental. It was growing into something intentional and strong. As Part 3 of his journey came to a close, Ethan felt a sense of purpose he had never known. He was no longer just a technician who stumbled into marriage. He was learning, leading in small ways, and protecting the people who had once seemed so alien. He had begun to find his place, not through strength or power alone, but through intelligence, courage, and humanity. Ethan Clarke had entered a new world by mistake. Yet, with each day, each lesson, each act of care and problem-solving, he became more than he had ever imagined. He was learning the true meaning of being a human in the vast galaxy, standing beside a queen and making a difference in ways neither Earth nor Zurian history could have predicted.